For nearly 2,000 years, an entire Roman library has been sitting in the dark, sealed by a volcano and effectively unreadable. Not lost, not missing, just locked. Because these aren't just normal scrolls anymore. They were carbonized into brittle black logs, and for centuries the rule was simple. Try to open one, and you destroy it. But recently, something changed. Using high-resolution scans and an AI system trained to detect ink that the human eye can't see, researchers started pulling real text out of a scroll without ever unrolling it. And the first clear word they extracted was purple. If you want to follow this library as it comes back to life, scroll by scroll, subscribe, because this isn't a one-time discovery. It's the start of a real-time resurrection. Which is strange, until you realize what kind of text this might be, and what it could mean if this library holds works no one has read since the Roman Empire. In this video, we'll break down how the technology works in plain terms, what the first scroll is actually saying, and why this discovery could be the beginning of a much bigger return. An ancient library speaking again. In 79 AD, when Mount Vesuvius erupted, it created a perfect oxygen-free oven. An entire library was flash-cooked. Hundreds, maybe thousands of papyrus scrolls were carbonized, baked into fragile, coal-like lumps. For centuries, this library represented one of archaeology's greatest frustrations. It's the only intact library to survive from the classical world, yet these scrolls were completely unreadable. When they were first discovered in the 1750s, early attempts to read them were catastrophic. Scholars tried to physically unroll the brittle logs. The result? The scrolls would crumble into dust, their secrets lost forever. Imagine finding a library of lost knowledge only to realize that the very act of reading it would destroy it. So the scrolls sat in museums for more than 250 years, untouched, unread, a riddle in plain sight. How could you possibly read something that would turn to ash the moment you touched it? The answer, it turned out, wasn't in archaeology, but in computer science. The modern breakthrough started with Professor Brent Seals at the University of Kentucky. Instead, Seals' team scanned the charred logs with high-resolution CT, capturing the scroll's layers in a precise 3D model. Inside the scan, and digitally flattens it into a clean 2D image. And then they looked at the result and saw nothing. Blank papyrus. The ink was invisible. The reason the ink was invisible is that ancient Roman ink was carbon-based. It was made from soot and charcoal. This meant the ink had almost the exact same density as the carbonized papyrus it was written on. To an X-ray, it was like trying to find a black cat in a coal cellar with the lights off. For years, this seemed like a dead end. This is where artificial intelligence entered the story. Seals and his team realized that while the ink was invisible to the naked eye, there might be microscopic differences in the texture of the papyrus where the ink had been applied. These differences, however subtle, might be detectable. They needed something that could learn to spot these incredibly faint patterns a human could never see. So they began training a machine learning model, an AI designed to spot those microscopic patterns. They fed it high-resolution scans of the scrolls and fragments where tiny traces of ink were known to exist, including on fragments that had already been physically opened. When the AI highlighted potential letters, researchers checked them against this known text to confirm it wasn't just noise. By showing the AI, this is what ink looks like and this is what blank papyrus looks like, The model slowly learned to recognize the ghost of the ancient writing. It wasn't seeing the ink itself, but the subtle textural changes it left on the papyrus fibers, a faint crackle pattern that was imperceptible until now. The potential was enormous, but the work was slow. To speed things up and bring more minds to the problem, Brent Seals teamed up with two Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, Nat Friedman and Daniel Gross. Together in March 2023, they launched the Vesuvius Challenge. The Vesuvius Challenge turned this academic pursuit into a global competition, offering over $1 million in prize money. The organizers released Seals CT scans and software to the public, challenging anyone, coders, students, AI enthusiasts, to improve the algorithms and be the first to read the scrolls. Suddenly, thousands of researchers from around the globe were working on the same problem. The first major prize was the First Letters Prize. Find the first legible word inside an intact scroll. Just a few months later, in October 2023, two contestants did it independently. Luke Ferreter, a 21-year-old computer science student and SpaceX intern from Nebraska, was the first to submit his finding. His algorithm produced a clear image of Greek letters spelling the word porphyris, meaning purple. Shortly after, Yusuf Nader, an Egyptian biorobotics PhD student in Berlin, found the exact same word, making the discovery undeniable. For the first time in 2 millennia, a clearly legible word was read from an intact Herculaneum scroll. The purple breakthrough opened the floodgates. Energized by their success, Luke Ferreter and Yusuf Nader teamed up with Julian Schilliger, a Swiss robotics student who had already won prizes for improving the virtual unwrapping software. This international team of students refined their AI models, pushing both the unwrapping and the ink detection far beyond what anyone thought possible. By the end of 2023, they submitted their findings for the $700,000 grand prize. The goal was to decipher 4 separate passages of at least 140 characters each. The team didn't just meet the goal, they shattered it. They successfully uncovered 15 full columns of text, over 2,000 characters in total, roughly 5% of one scroll. So, after 2,000 years of science, what did the scroll say? The text is a previously unknown philosophical work, likely by the Epicurean philosopher Philodemus, who lived in Herculaneum. The author discusses pleasure, specifically how the availability of goods affects the pleasure we get from them. He writes about music and food, questioning whether things that are scarce are more enjoyable than things that are abundant. It's a sophisticated philosophical argument about the nature of pleasure, a cornerstone of Epicurean philosophy. This wasn't a copy of a known text. It appeared to be a completely new work, a voice from the ancient world speaking to us for the very first time. The Vesuvius Challenge then entered its second phase, with a 2024 goal of reading 90% of the first 4 scanned scrolls and automating the process to accelerate future discoveries. The momentum continued to build as new text was revealed. By mid-2024, a separate team reported they had successfully decoded the title of a second work from the center of the scroll, Philodemus's On Vices and Their Opposite Virtues. And that's the part that changes everything. Because this isn't a one-off miracle, it's a method. There are more than 600 scrolls still waiting, and while no one can promise what's inside them, scholars do have a kind of dream list, the things you'd almost be afraid to hope for. Many classicists think what's been excavated so far may be a smaller Greek library, and some archaeologists argue it's at least possible a larger Latin library. Roman literature and history could still be buried nearby, waiting to be found. So the honest answer to what might we find is, we don't know. But the wish list is extraordinary. Maybe more lost works from the philosophical world we're already seeing. Maybe unknown texts by authors we only know through fragments and second-hand quotes. And yes, people inevitably whisper about famous long shots, lost poems, lost histories, first-hand accounts of Rome, even early religious texts. Not because anyone expects those to be here, but because for the first time in 2,000 years, it's no longer fantasy to check. It's a perfect example of how new technology can unlock secrets we thought were lost to time forever. If you want to follow this ancient library as it comes back scroll by scroll, subscribe to Long Lost History. In the next video, we'll dig into what the earliest decoded passages suggest the author was really arguing, and why researchers think this may be only the beginning of what's still hidden. The story of the Herculaneum scrolls is one of destruction and miraculous preservation. And now, retrieval. A volcanic eruption that wiped out a city also created a time capsule. For centuries, we could only look at these charred lumps and wonder. Now, thanks to the 2-decade-long vision of researchers like Brent Seals, the global collaboration sparked by the Vesuvius Challenge, and the brilliant students who cracked the code, we are finally reading them. We are witnessing the beginning of what could be one of the most significant discoveries from the ancient world. A new library of antiquity is opening, not with the turning of a page, but with the click of a mouse and the power of an algorithm. It's a stunning reminder that the past is never truly lost, and sometimes, to hear its voice, you just need to invent a new way to listen.